Welcome to Season 4, Tales from the Trenches Tuesdays. Today, it is my honor to have Mario Hernandez with me.
Here's a story of a fundraiser who was launching his very own web show. Each episode is very short due to edits, so it can really flow. Here's a story of a podcast guest star who was busy raising money of their own. They were each great in their own way, fundraising in his own. Till the one day when Jack asked a guest to join him, and they knew it was much more than a jest, that these guests must somehow form a resource. That's the way they all became the podcast guests. The podcast guests. The podcast guests. That's the way they became the podcast guests.
Mario is a two-time exited founder, a proud father and husband, now helping nonprofits fundraise on LinkedIn and building an AI venture for the nonprofit sector. So welcome, Mario. It's a pretty interesting take that you have doing fundraising on LinkedIn. So tell me how you came to do that and what it's all about.
Thank you, Jack. I did appreciate that. Yeah, to be quite honest, we were doing quite a lot of webinars, a lot of connection calls, just trying to understand the pain points of nonprofits, which let's say 8 out of 10 times, it's generally that they'll say fundraising. But then we like to drill down, understand the root cause of what's not allowing them to fundraise effectively. And we just dove into the research of understanding that traditionally it's always been Instagram, Facebook, this kind of pray and spray approach, and incredibly enough, only about 49% of nonprofits are actually active on LinkedIn, which I thought was an extremely low number. And so once we started to dive in and understand the complexities as to why they were having their own self limiting beliefs of their own capabilities of actually understanding how to reach out to corporations, businesses, smaller, medium, high net worth individuals on the platform, we realized there was just a huge opportunity when done right. When you actually go beyond the logo, beyond the organizational page, maximize personal branding, and especially now with the political atmosphere, as you well know, we need to find new revenue streams. We need to be creative. We need to be innovative. And so we put it to the test. And fortunately, with the organizations that we started to work with, there was huge success. And then in that moment, we said, well, we have to amplify this completely and help uplift the sector, taking advantage of a platform that I believe is still very young. It's growing, it's becoming more powerful. And this whole relationship first approach, this trust that you have to have being your greatest asset, is only becoming more important. So now is the time for the first mover advantage for nonprofits to get active, work in unison, their fundraisers, leadership team, their boards, their executive directors, everybody working in unison with a very similar voice on LinkedIn to just drive the efforts, visibility, fundraise, and a lot more.
So is it similar to what one would do on Facebook or Twitter or any of those other social media, or is it different on LinkedIn? Because LinkedIn has more of that business persona, where Facebook and Twitter are more of the personal persona per se, right? Like it's just your own personal beliefs, and a lot of times LinkedIn is very much B2B kind of concept.
That's exactly right. So I love that you mentioned that. We see that as a huge advantage because it is a professional network. So the tone, the posts themselves, everything is there to be of value. Like you have to be able to help, you have to be able to provide something that's worthwhile for the community as well. And so that provides the opportunities. One, we're seeing a generational shift within the workplace, right? There's like 75% of the workforce is now millennials and Gen Z. They're purpose driven completely. So they're demanding their enterprises to look for purpose driven work that's transparent. That becomes a huge plus for the nonprofits to shift the mindset where it's no longer an ask. Instead, they're providing a value to these corporations to increase employee engagement, to increase customer retention, and so forth. So they have to start considering it like a B2B platform in their own communication. And secondly, we realize that again on Instagram and Facebook, it's tough to compete with those larger organizations like UNICEF, WWF. Like they just place in a logo and they'll capture a lot of donations because it's just led by that brand name. On LinkedIn, however, we believe, and we've seen it come to effect, that smaller organizations just getting themselves active, becoming thought leaders, authorities in their space, in the cause that they're pushing forward, can reach any type of enterprise. Like, I'm a big promoter of that. Anyone is reachable on LinkedIn when you do it right. When you don't send out the first message saying, "This is my cause. Will you please donate?" Never do that, but just actually establish a relationship first and actually utilize your personal branding to do so. And then all of a sudden, just the floodgates become to open up. And now you're looking for sustainable funding from these high net worth individuals that want to support the causes, but you have to become findable and fundable.
Exactly, exactly. So, if you think about it, in Facebook, everyone has said for years, oh, you got to be on Facebook. You're going to raise, millions of dollars. I've never seen millions of dollars raised for any organization I've been with through Facebook. I have no idea if I could cash in what a like is. Maybe I might have something. But the vast majority of folks don't actually click through and donate on those. So, I kind of think of Facebook as the friends and the grassroots, and I think much more LinkedIn on the corporate side, where it might be a lot more sophisticated, right? It's not just click here. It's developing that deeper relationship because the people that are LinkedIn, you're asking for bigger gifts, presumably, than John Q. Public, who would be on Facebook or Twitter. Am I kind of in the right direction there?
Absolutely right. And it's like I'm not even considering LinkedIn anymore, to be quite honest, like a social media platform. I think it's its own platform because of the maturity that you well mentioned. People are on there to really understand and connect with one another on a deep level. They want to have these professional conversations. You're also having the opportunity for the nonprofit organizations to get your board members active on LinkedIn as well. Created somewhat of a digital board is what we're really calling it, because the sphere of influence becomes to grow. And so when you actually do work alongside someone from a company, and you can, I mean, where else can you find the decision makers, the CEOs, C-suite executives, etc., very diligently utilizing Sales Navigator and so forth. But once you do, now all of a sudden you build that rapport, you build that trust, you have a success story. Now amplify that because, as you well know, businesses talk to one another, they make referrals. So a larger gift can become amplified or exponential because they'll start referring it to their own friends that are also on LinkedIn, are also business owners, etc. So the ability to just grow those large donations, I like to call them investments because they're long term. And they're generally with these companies, they want to do it multi-year. They don't like just a short-term donation and then they're gone. They want a partnership. So that's the ability to start growing sustainably as well, to get that financial stability within the platform like LinkedIn.
So talk to me about a success story where, you had a client or someone that you knew of that, was on LinkedIn. They wanted to expand their reach on LinkedIn. Was it a new prospect, a prospective donor that they wound up ultimately securing, or was it a donor that was there that they just kind of amplified?
That's yeah, so we had one person, her name is Trisha, and she has a nonprofit that's very much focused on preventive care for animals. She was hesitant at first. We got a back and forth, which was fantastic, and then she decided to just be a part of one of our cohorts. And immediately in 3 weeks' time, she had 25 new connection calls. She talked about one of the greatest strengths was just like the mentality shift of just taking now an approach that's strategic and intentional on LinkedIn, being patient in terms of actually setting up those relationships. But she had 25 plus connection calls. She secured two major corporate sponsorships. And more so, she just started to get an incredible community of raving fans because we've been telling her we have to evolve from building an audience to building a community. An audience can be, you can have 20,000 followers all of a sudden. How many of them are the right connections? So I don't mind if you have 1,000 connections, let them be the right connections for your organization. And so she started to build that out. And all of a sudden, she had the corporate partnerships come in, but then she had also businesses. One of them has an app with like 7 million users. And he just was so impressed by her cause, the way that she reached out, that she placed her nonprofit in the very front page of that app, which all these 7 million eyeballs are now actually taking a look at it in a daily basis. So it was a huge win. And we've been seeing that across our different organizations as well because they just went through it in that same methodology. So we're extremely inspired by it, and we're really just getting started with this.
And so what's the time cycle for this, right? So much as you had said in earlier was spray and pray, which doesn't work overly effectively. But with a direct mail, there's a pretty quick timeline, right? Within 6 weeks of it going out, you've received about 90% of what you're gonna receive from the direct mail. An event, there's a specific cutoff. Direct or a major gift is a much longer relationship building. You're not going to propose marriage on a first date, and you're not going to ask for a gift on the first interaction that you're there. So, tell me what kind of a typical time horizon is to get to the right people, because far too often I have folks that ask to be connected on LinkedIn, and I accept. I would say I accept 99.9% of the people. And then literally within 6 hours, I get an email from them that they're selling me something. And so I immediately delete them. And I'm just, nothing about me. You're just trying to, spray and pray, as they say, right? So talk to me a little bit about that whole methodology.
No, you're absolutely right, and, no one likes to get pitch slapped, right? It's just, like, the worst feeling in the world. So we generally tell, and that's what we've been able to demonstrate, our nonprofits, that patience really is your greatest virtue. This is a system that you have to be placing into. It takes 2 to 3 months to start seeing those partnerships come into fruition. Some come quicker. I mean, Trisha had it in 3 weeks' time, but it's one of those where we're not gonna be promoting that. This takes time. You gotta be able to put in the work because you're never gonna do what you just mentioned. You're never gonna go do a donation slap in this regard because it just feels horrible. You lose all sort of credibility, all sort of reputation, and people will either just like eliminate your connection or won't want to hear about it again. So it takes around 2 to 3 months, but what we've been able to demonstrate is very much of our ethos. A long-term relationship will always yield a better result than a short-term donation. And so once you have to kind of just trust the process and trust that as well, you start seeing it, okay, 90 days onward. But it definitely has to be an approach where we're telling them the same thing. Reach out and be interested in what they do. Say, hey, I saw that you're managing this company. I was in your location about 3 months ago. Fantastic. Happy to support. I thought that your comment on this was really insightful. I would have done this in my case. Be human. Like the way that we need to treat LinkedIn, and really just like anything else, but think about it like a real life networking event. And so too many times you get online and it's like this different persona, right? And it shouldn't be the case. Nobody wants to hang out with the person that goes to the networking event and says, "Hey, I'm Mario and I'm selling you this." So you're gonna be the person that's completely ignored in the corner. LinkedIn works the same way. Just because you're online, it shouldn't shift the mentality. Get on there the way you would in real life and just have a human conversation saying, Jack, notice that you're in Canada. Absolutely love it. My business partners are from Canada as well. I hope to visit in 3 months. What are you all about? That's it. And then all of a sudden you build that relationship. And it does take a little bit of time, but 3 months or so. And then all of a sudden you're going to start seeing that it just starts opening up a lot of doors.
Mario, this has been such an eye opener for me. I had a whole list of questions, and I think I hit one, maybe two of them, just because I think it's so interesting. And we went on, kind of our own little tangent there. So thank you. If folks wanted to connect with you, assuming LinkedIn is probably the best way of doing it, right?
Absolutely. And thank you so much, Jack. I honestly enjoy this conversation. Happy to have you on the LinkedIn Live as well. And whenever we can do this again, absolutely love it. But yes, you can find me, incredibly enough, on LinkedIn, Mario Hernandez, Impact Circle. You'll find me there. You can also find us through our website, www.impactcircle.network. And there you can even like book a call with us directly. We do if you just join us or follow us on LinkedIn, we provide plenty of free resources. Like, and I'm saying this on a weekly basis. Plenty of free resources that you can start implementing them today. And just because they're free, it's not that they're not valuable. You're going to find that you can actually make incredible changes to your fundraising abilities by just utilizing them. And we do a lot of webinars. We just jump on calls. So find me on LinkedIn or on my website, and happy to get to know you, your organization. And thank you for everybody who listens to your podcast.
Thank you so much, Mario.
Thank you again, Jack. Really enjoyed it.